This is the cheap little bicycle that I removed the bottom assembly here and the crank for the hand sander. I'm now going to scavenge another couple of items off it, namely I want to use that for a tool rest. This is a length of 16mm diameter threaded bar, and this is going to go into the base of the tailstock, and this is going to secure the tailstock to the bed. So first of all I've got to make this into a thread cutter, a tap, so that it can cut its own thread into the tailstock. So what I'm going to do is cut 4 tapering slots in the thread so it will act as a tap. So here we go. I'm now ready to put the homemade stud into the base of the tailstock. So I'll drill a pilot hole first, down the centre. Down that line. Now we'll put the first stud in. Get it started. I put a little candle wax on the thread just to help it guide itself in. It is rather a fine thread for wood, but I believe I have sufficient length in the tailstock to ensure that it won't pull out when I tighten it up on the lathe bed. That should it. And there we are. Take the nuts off and try it for size. I've made the tool rest out of this rounded bar, which I've got a load of, and this bar is from it's the locking bars for casement windows, and the casement windows are recuperated, so I've stripped out the mild steel bar, and that's some good stock. Welds quite easily and perfect for the job. I'm now ready to put my first tag welds onto the tool rest. They're here and here, and we'll see how we get on with it. That's the welds has secured it. It's nice and square, so I can now run a continuous weld fillet all the way down the length of the tool rest. This is not the original saddle. The original saddle was exchanged for this one because this one is broken, and my neighbour's children had that, so it's already got a second life. That's the first part of the tool rest welded up. It's a bit crude, but it will work. Now you can see that put a drill in here so we can see that the tool rest is at its lowest point here, and it's well below the centre line of the drill, and because of the adjustment I've got, I will be able to vary the height of the tool rest. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to weld the base here to 2 strips of mild steel, which will then be anchored to the bed. And talking of the bed, I've screwed in a stiffening plate here to support the bed at the midsection, because I did notice a little bit of deflection on it in one of the videos I'd made. So now that is a nice rigid midsection, so the whole bed is now stiff and level. I'm now ready to mount the tool post support to its bottom mounting, and I've just pinched it together prior to welding with a 12mm threaded stud, which is what I'm going to use to attach it to the lathe bed anyway. So it's square and set to the right distance. Let's give it a weld. Here's the finished tool rest. You can raise or lower it. As I say, a bit of lousy welding, but nevertheless it's solid and it will work. So the next thing is the mounting bolt, which is a piece of threaded bar, and I've just found this very thick washer, which I believe is cast iron, and just cut a flat on it so it will sit right up close to the vertical post of the tool rest to give me as much movement as possible inwards and outwards from the workpiece. And underneath, here's the finished guide washer, if you like, that runs in the track, the bottom of the track, so that everything is held aligned. And underneath you can see the guide that I made up with the square washer. There we are, the finished tool rest assembly. I've set what's going to be the centre into the chuck of the lathe, and now I'm going to grind the centre point on it. So let's give it a go. Quench it, because it will have got a bit hot. I've just put a whiteboard behind it so you can see the point of the centre there. So now I've got to fit it into the tailstock. Now this is an M10 all thread bar, and I'm going to want to put a 10mm diameter hole right the way through the tailstock. So first of all I'm going to drill a pilot hole, and then I'm going to go through it with the 10mm bit. So I'm just going to slide the tailstock into position. Now I've got the 10mm bit in. It's actually quite interesting because such a good fit, obviously an M10 thread going through an M10 hole. I have to screw it through. So all I need to do now is put a locking nut on the back, and we can tighten that up. I'll just put a washer on the back. I'm not putting one on the front because I'm just going to pull the thing together with the rear nut, and the front nut can dig into the wood as far as I'm concerned because it will hold everything more securely. So there we are, that's it. One tailstock. And one last thing to do is I've got a machine centre here, so I'm just going to put it into the chuck. Do it the right way, tighten it up, and if all goes well, the tailstock centre and it should and do coincide. Now for the driving point on the headstock, I've ground a sharp edge on the rear face of this wing nut, and now I'm going to grind a point on the bolt so that there'll be 3 points of contact going into the wood to drive it. So I'm going to grind a point on this just like I did on the tailstock dead centre. There we are. Now when I screw this wing nut up, we've got a centre point and the two driving edges which are going to hold and drive the wood. And that's it locked up. And one final check I'll do is just check see if these are collinear, these two ends. Oh, that's nice. I bought one of these some time ago from a company called Maplin in the UK, and it's exactly what it says, a hard wearing push to make foot switch. It's going to be mounted in a small, obviously pallet wood fabricated foot switch. Although this little switch has a spring return in it, I'm going to not just rely on that one. I'm going to use this spring that's come out of a bicycle derailleur gears, and that I will put underneath the foot pedal just to lift it up. And we've got hens laying. Right, so now I'm ready to solder the wires to the switch. And just check for continuity when I operate the switch. There we are. There it is, all finished, all screwed together. I've put two stop screws here just so that the foot pedal wouldn't go back too far. Let's see if it works now. Right, so I've got a bit of ash branch in the lathe and an audience of chickens. So I'm just going to have a little go with the lathe. Well, there's no doubt now that it's working quite well. I could try a higher speed actually, but it's early days yet. And here's the completed first project with the wood turning lathe, a handle for a gouge. Once again I used a piece of bicycle frame just to put a steel collar around the end of the chisel.